Okay, so we're back, and in our first scenario we talked about hooking a battery up with the easiest case, where we're just going to hook two batteries up in the hood of the car, and we're always going to have the car running when we play our system, so we weren't worried about seeing the batteries being drained. Just go positive to positive, negative to negative, and put a fuse as close as possible to each battery. Okay, let's look at a more complex case where you want to be able to play the system without the car running, because you're going to need another device when you do that. And let's also say you're going to have the battery in the car with you and not up here in the hood compartment. Okay, so let's get rid of this battery. Okay, so we're back here with just our battery up there. Okay, so let's say what we want to do is we want to hook the new battery in here, back in the back, in the trunk or behind the seat or something like that. Just in the cab with us, or in the trunk. So we got our plus and minus, and we got our amp and stuff back here. Okay, so how do we hook this up? And this right here must be a sealed battery, because it's in the cab with you, and or in the car with you, and if it wasn't sealed, it would vent hydrogen gas into the car with you, and that is extremely flammable. You don't want to do that. So this must be sealed if it's in the car with you. You don't want to breathe in hydrogen either. Okay, so we got that question answered. It must be a sealed, and since we said we want to listen to it without the car running, we also know that it must be deep cycle. To see why, you can check out my other video where I talked about the different types of batteries and why we can't have a starter type battery like a red top. You can't have a red top here if you want to listen to the system without the car running. Can't do it. Optima red top would not work very well here. And you can look at my other video to see why. Okay, so we know we need a sealed battery and we need a deep cycle battery. So how do we hook them up? Okay, the negative will be the exact same that we did before, except since this is now a longer run, because we got to make it all the way to the back of the car, this needs to be a much thicker cable. You're probably going to need a 1 or 2 gauge cable, maybe even a 1/0 cable to run all the way to the back. So your negative goes to negative. Okay. And there are going to be those who say, well, no, you don't have to do that. You can just run this wire to the frame of the car. You can do that if you've done the big 3, and it's still not the ideal case, but if you've done the big 3 where you've upgraded this battery's connection to the frame, and then you run another big wire to the frame, then that's good. Big wire to the frame, big wire to the frame, as happens in the big 3. But if you haven't, and just general practice, negative to negative with a solid 1/0 wire is the most ideal case. Okay, so here's where it gets tricky, the positive side. Okay, since we want, this is this is the front of the car. This is our starter battery right here, and this is our extra battery that we're adding in the back. Okay, what we're going to have to do is we need to be able to isolate this starter battery from the system, and we just want this battery right here to run our amplifier. So we're going to have our amplifier, let's say our amps right here. What we're going to have is a wire coming from here. It's going to go into a fuse, then it's going to go into our amp. I guess you guys see I'm big on fuses. I am, because they can save you a lot of headache and save you your car catching on fire. So, okay, you're going to fuse that right there. So we got our amp sitting back here. And we want, when we turn the car off, we want just this battery to run that amp. Why? Because we want to always have 12 volts to start our car. So we want this battery totally isolated from the network. And there are 2 types of devices that can do that. There are what's called battery relays, and there are what's called battery isolators. Both of them do the same function, and there's a lot of debate onto which one is best. I'm going to do battery relay since that's what I use. So we come out here into a device called a battery relay. I'm going to draw it. They're not this large, but I'm drawing it just so we can see. And they have 4 terminals on them. They have 2 big terminals and then 2 little small terminals on them. Okay, so from our starter battery, we'll take that into one of the big positive terminals on that battery. Oops, almost forgot something. Fuse goes right here, as close to this battery as possible. Okay, and then out the other big positive terminal will come out and we'll go to the back, fuse here, and then go to the battery. Positive goes to positive through this relay. Okay, now on the relay there will also be 2 small terminals. The negative one on there will go to the chassis of the car somewhere, to a ground, or you can take it to the negative of the battery. This other positive terminal is the important one. This needs to be hooked to a wire in your car that is hot when the vehicle is in start and when it is in run or on. And the best place to get that is somewhere from the ignition switch. So find one of the fuse blocks or something and hook it to that, because you want something. This is your ignition switch, and for American cars they've got start, they've got run, and then they've got, if you turn it back off here, and then they've got accessory. Okay, we want this wire to be hot when the car is in start and when it's in run. So we'll take this wire that's from the start and run that's hot and run it to there. This way, whenever the car is running, all the batteries are hooked together. But when you turn that car off, this is totally isolated, and the only amplifier running, the only battery running this amp is this battery back here. So that if you totally get this battery even down to 0 volts, when you're trying to start your car, this battery is still at 12 volts. It hasn't given any of its energy to the audio system. It's totally isolated from the audio system. And that's what you want when you want to be able to crank your system without the car running. So that's how you hook up multiple batteries. This is one of the most complicated cases, and people are iffy about this one because this battery is not helping with the audio system when the car is off. But that's a starter battery, and it can't see 10.5 volts. So at the end, this battery is running the amp by itself in this scenario. But to recap, the main thing we need to focus on when we're hooking up multiple batteries to a car, I'm going to move this wire out of the way. Positive always goes to positive. Negative always goes to negative. Once again, negative to negative, positive to positive. And you will need a fuse next to every battery that you have in the system. So as close as possible to this battery you can get, put a fuse there. Close as possible to this battery, put a fuse there. And if you want to play the system without the car running, you need a battery isolator. You can either use a battery isolator or a battery relay. What I described here is a relay, where the big terminals go to each battery, and the small terminal, one goes to the ground of the car, one goes to the ignition switch. And it needs to be hot when the car is in start and when the car is in run. And that's it. That's it.